Last year, I made a video talking about Call of Duty fans being overly excited for a game which effectively was a full-priced DLC to the previous game, which was also lackluster. And a year later, two things are the same. Call of Duty fans are hyped for a game they know nothing about, and my channel is getting no views. So, why not a round two? Before I start, I want to make something very clear. There is nothing wrong with being excited for a new video game, especially a Treyarch video game with such a great marketing campaign behind it so far. It is normal to be looking forward to seeing what they are cooking up this year, and if they will actually make a good game for once. I'm specifically referring to the typical comments of "Call of Duty is finally saved" and "Finally, a Call of Duty worth playing," comments I have been seeing a lot more of this year. People seem to think just because Treyarch is making the game, the entire franchise will be saved overnight. But why are we treating this game like a saint when we literally know nothing about it? So, what do we know? Black Ops 6 has been in development by Treyarch for 4 years now, starting after their previous title, Black Ops Cold War, making it the longest development time for a Call of Duty ever. It'll utilize the COD HQ engine, the newest edition of the Infinity Ward engine, which was also used in Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3. The game will primarily take place during the Gulf War, but will seemingly have a jump cut to include the Iraq War as well. The game will also release on last-gen consoles, that being PS4 and the original Xbox One, but it has been confirmed to be available on Game Pass day one. We also know some information about the Zombies mode, which apparently will have a more traditional gameplay loop after the backlash of Vanguard and the Modern Warfare's Zombies mode, both being really disliked by the community. That information is mostly positive, and I could see why people would be looking forward to a game like this, but that's not what has so many people excited for Black Ops 6. Because numerous sources, including Tom Henderson, have stated Black Ops 2 Remastered is scheduled for either Black Ops 6 or the game following Black Ops 6, which will inevitably tie into the game like Modern Warfare 3 did with Modern Warfare 2. Black Ops 2 Remastered has made people extremely vocal for their love for a game even though they don't really know anything about it. And if you don't remember, this is exactly the same marketing strategy Sledgehammer had with Modern Warfare 3. We were just lucky Activision allowed them to make the changes the community actually wanted rather than making a boring, repetitive, lackluster piece like the one before it. On paper, Black Ops 2 Remastered sounds like a dream, and I think that's where the hype is mostly coming from. People don't realize this is purely nostalgia bait. Since Cold War, Call of Duty has relied very heavily on their remakes and bringing up previous games to keep their players active. Hell, they even had an entire season based on it in Vanguard. It is cool that Activision is acknowledging their history, and the map remakes can be fun to play, but where is the logic in paying essentially $140, since you'd be buying this year and next year's Call of Duty, for a game originally priced at $60, where a lot of the guns and maps were already reused in recent titles? It's just another example of them taking advantage of their audience and slapping a new sticker on recycled content. This doesn't even take into consideration the changes that have been made since Black Ops 2, which could be present in the remaster. We already know it'll be on the COD HQ engine, an engine not even made by Treyarch. This could completely alter the way these maps play, just like how Estate plays amazingly on the original Modern Warfare 2, but has a terrible flow on Modern Warfare 3. Not only this, but what about things like sliding, tack sprinting, and stim shots? All things that are now staple in Call of Duty, with Activision even working on new technology to improve them and make them more efficient. Are we really expecting the penny pinching Activision to just remove it from a title? And not to mention the most obvious question, will it have skill-based matchmaking? That's a topic that has been in heated discussion recently, since it really gets talked about every time a Call of Duty gets announced, but it's only amplified this year by the release of X-Defiant, which is being praised for not featuring it. Now, I'm not ignorant so I would never say it's impossible for them to make a proper remaster worth playing, and I'll give credit where it's due. Activision has been more and more transparent with their community since the acquisition by Microsoft. A great example of this is their deep dive on skill-based matchmaking. However, I wouldn't take everything they say here as fact because they leave out a lot of important information in their report. But I will say it's safe to say that with their history, it's very unlikely for whatever they imagine a remaster to be, it won't be something like we saw with maybe Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Whether they realize it or not, I think the fact of the matter is this is really Activision's last chance of making a Call of Duty game people will pay for. With the release of XDefiant, COD now has a direct competitor, which clearly is something they are fearing. I say this because the day after XDefiant released, Call of Duty starts their marketing campaign for Black Ops 6, which I think was them trying to sabotage them. And for my returning viewers, you may remember at the end of last year's video, I talked about how XDefiant would benefit players whether they liked the game or not. This was because the competition would allow for both games to improve and the developers would push to make the changes that bring more players rather than more money. And I still stand by that to this day. In fact, I think this is only amplified now because of how successful XDefiant has been. I was expecting people to like the game, but it really amazed me how people have kind of fallen in love with the game. Even Call of Duty professionals and leakers who make their living based on Call of Duty have been praising it. From my perspective, I think XDefiant has a huge advantage on Call of Duty at the moment. The game is free and will not have a yearly release cycle, meaning there will likely never be an XDefiant 2 or an XDefiant Revolutionary Warfare or whatever, where Call of Duty has things like Warzone, their campaign, their multiplayer, and their zombies. XDefiant just offers multiplayer, and XDefiant does their multiplayer really, really well. Compared to Call of Duty, who just takes all of their things and mashes it together, trying to make a whole product when everything individually is just kind of mediocre. So right now, players are having to choose from paying $70 for a brief campaign, a free battle royale, a poorly supported multiplayer that only benefits the worst players, and a PvE mode that hasn't been good since Black Ops 4. Or they could play a free game that specialized at one thing and already has over a year's worth of post-launch content ready to publish. But on the contrary, I am all for giving every game a fair chance. My goal with this video is to express the ignorance of blindly believing hype and trusting the success of a video game based on no facts, just our initial perception, which so far has only focused on the campaign anyways. And to add to that, it is equally ignorant to immediately dismiss the game and claim the game sucks without the same amount of information. I think many have forgotten video games are about expressing yourself and being entertained, and it's silly to bash someone for playing Call of Duty over XDefiant or vice versa. And it's important to make your voice heard when you don't like something. That's kind of the whole reason competition exists in the first place. And the reality is, Call of Duty isn't a perfect game. Neither is XDefiant. But both provide a value that you can't find anywhere else. And speaking of XDefiant not being the perfect game, check out this video I made where I covered all the issues I think hold back XDefiant from being the perfect game it deserves to be.